All right, CSEC English A, a guide to essay writing for students of CSEC English A. And when we say essay writing, it's argumentative and persuasive. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a past paper question and kind of break down what we see in front of us. The question reads, every secondary school student should be required to do community service as a condition for graduation. Write an essay giving your views on the statement. So it says here, giving your views, which means if you want to take an argumentative rather than a persuasive approach, you may. So you don't have to stick to one particular side and just hammer that home, ignoring the other side. You can write a slightly more balanced essay when you get a statement like this. However, always choose like a main side. Always choose a side that you're going to support at least 70%. Right? That's my advice. All right, so let's look at a couple of things here. First of all, we see that the suggested time is 45 minutes. And Slim, how do you feel about 45 minutes? Is that enough time to write an essay?
Maybe, maybe not, because depends on the question. Sometimes you get points immediately as you see it. Immediately as you see the question, you get the points out of your head. Sometimes the 4 is harder to find than the against. Sometimes you only get 2 points and you need an extra one to make that 3.
So 250 to 300 words. This is not a long essay they're asking us to write. We're looking at 5 modest paragraphs. You won't be able to write everything on the topic. It's just 300 words tops. And I would say we could go a bit over because it says approximately, right? 250 to 300 words. So we could go a little bit over, but let's not go under 250. That's kind of dangerous. That's indicating that we're not able to write at length, and we don't want to give CSEC that impression. Oh, interestingly, there's a blank space for any notes you may want to take, and we're going to be using that blank page. We're not leaving anything, right? You paid for the exam, you get to use all of the paper. You're going to have some planning to do, so that blank space will be used. We'll get there. Clearly, you must write in standard English. I wonder why they thought they had to make that clear, right? This is English A, not Spanish A or French A or Patois A, right? English A, standard English. You may include a little bit of dialect within quotation marks if you're quoting someone and it's relevant, but of course, it's an essay in English. And you're going to be assessed on these 3 areas: how appropriate your content is, how clear your content is, how well you organize it, how well you develop your argument, and of course the basic stuff like your grammar, sentence structure, paragraphing, spelling, all that stuff. These 3 elements will be used, these 3 criteria, to judge your essay, and they will determine how many marks you get out of 25, right? How many marks you get out of 25. So we can look a little bit more on what CSEC expects by looking at their mark scheme. Yeah, almost none of you on stream actually look at CSEC mark schemes, and I don't know why. Why would you not look at the document that tells you exactly how to get a grade 1? That's strange. Very strange behavior. They're telling you here, do this to get a grade 1. So we need to pay attention. Let's look at expression, the expression skills. What must we be able to do here? Let's see. Must be able to show this skill. Correct use of structures of the language. So you must be writing in complete sentences. That should be a no-brainer. You shouldn't be writing sentence fragments. You shouldn't be writing phrases and leaving them to hang. Make sure your sentences are complete. The sentences must be clear and meaningful. So every single sentence must contribute meaning to the essay, right? Make sure you're not writing things that no one can figure out what you actually mean, right? You need appropriate transitions between sentences and between paragraphs. So let me just go ahead and highlight some key things here, right? Sentences must be complete. Yeah. Sentences must be clear and meaningful. You must have transitions between sentences and paragraphs. So when you're moving within a paragraph, how you connect the sentences should be clear. When you're moving from one paragraph to the next, we should see the relationship between those paragraphs with appropriate transitional words and phrases. Don't worry, we're going to get into all of these things. I'm just giving you the outline of what CSEC is expecting. Right? And then we have the basic stuff, for example, subject verb agreement. It's a very basic grammatical thing. Oh yeah, this one trips students up when it comes down to story writing, but I haven't really seen where it's a big deal in essay writing. Usually the tense is fine. Right? Accuracy of mechanics. We need to make sure that we are using, good punctuation, good spelling, good paragraphing. Basic stuff. Right? And let's look at what CSEC calls a superior writer. A superior writer demonstrates excellent management of argument and content. Right? You know how to argue, you know what to argue. Excellent organization of argument. You know what point should come first, what point should come second. You know how to connect them. Right? Error-free use of language. No misspellings, no incorrect use of diction, no grammatical errors and silly things like that. That's what we call excellence here, right? And that's what we want to attain. So by the end of this presentation, I want us to recognize that this is the standard we need to meet, and we're going to learn how to meet that standard. All right, bam. 3 steps. We're going to write our essay in 3 steps, 3 stages. If you skip a step, you're at risk of not writing a proper essay. First, naturally, we plan. How can you write without planning? You won't know what to write, and you will be in there spending 1 hour writing an essay because you're just making up points as you go. You want to know exactly what points you're going to be writing about. So when you start writing, it's go. So you got a plan. We're going to get into the different elements of planning, because you got to do 3 things while you're planning. You have to look at different points you can argue for both sides, for and against. When you look at both sides, you're able to choose which side is better for you, which side is easier to argue. And then you're going to choose 3 points and write your essay based on those 3 points. Usually, planning takes about 10 minutes. Yeah, about 10 minutes. After you plan, clearly you're going to start writing. This takes about 30 minutes. When you're writing, you're looking at the 5-paragraph structure. This is what I always recommend. You start with your intro, then you have your 3 body paragraphs where you have those 3 points that you would have selected. Then you top it off nicely with your conclusion. After that, you go to the last step, which is reviewing your essay. Hopefully you have enough time left. This is section D, the end of the exam, which means this is where a lot of students are rushing. They're trying to make up for lost time. They might have spent too long on the story. So hopefully you have enough time to actually get to review. When you're reviewing an essay, these are the things you're going to check for. Make sure that you've made a good stance, made a clear stance, meaning the reader knows exactly what your position on the matter is. They know what your opinion is. They know what your argument is. Make sure your points are clear. I should be able to read the essay and come away learning or understanding 3 things about the issue. Make sure they are clear. and well explained, right? Make sure you have evidence. You can't, people won't just believe you for no reason. Whatever point you bring to the table, support it with some kind of evidence. We'll get into it later, right? Make sure your paragraphs flow logically. And of course, this is going to be helped out by using those transitional words and phrases, right? Make sure you use a variety, not just one, not just rhetorical question all day long. Use a variety of persuasive techniques, right? For the persuasive and even for the argumentative essay, throw in some persuasive techniques, right? Make sure you do not contradict yourself. Make sure if you say social media is the best thing since sliced bread in paragraph 1, by paragraph 3 you're not telling us why social media is terrible. Make sure your essay is really telling us something that makes sense from beginning to end, especially if you're writing a persuasive essay and you're not looking at both sides of the issue. In the argumentative essay, where you try to be a bit more balanced, it can be a bit trickier, but there are ways to offer counter arguments and there are ways to look at both sides without contradicting yourself, right? And of course, the obvious, make sure there are no errors. That's our review. All right. So next we're going to look at the planning stage. And Slim, would you add anything to this in terms of steps that you take when writing your essay?
These are the steps that mostly I take. Yeah.
Which step is the hardest for you most times?
Most time the planning. Depends on the
Planning.
yeah, depends on the statement that they give you. Coming up with points. Tough for me.
All right. For me, perhaps the review stage might be the trickiest because there's not much I can change when I'm,
Yeah.
40 minutes have passed. Like, what if I realize that one point is just complete madness? It's going to be really tough to do a lot of rewriting at this stage of the game, right? And sometimes it's hard for us to recognize our own mistakes, like spelling errors and stuff. Somebody else might find them easily, but when you're looking at your own writing, it's like we're too used to our own writing to really see it clearly. Yeah, so sometimes the reviewing can be tough. The main part of planning is really thinking of 4 to 5 points for each side of the argument. So you're looking at like 8 to 10 points you're going to be brainstorming in the exam room. All right, so let's have a look at thinking of 4 to 5 points for each argument, for each side of the argument. For example, the use of social media is negatively affecting the lives of young people. Write an essay giving your views on the statement. So when you're planning, first you need some material to work with. So you say, all right, let me do for, let me do against, and you write up this in the planning box, the planning section, right? And now you're able to do a little bit of brainstorming within a few minutes, jot down the points that come to mind. Here are some examples of points. For, so points that would support the idea that social media is negatively affecting the lives of young people. Excessive social media use has been linked to mental health issues, right? I think that's a fair point. So I could write a paragraph on that. Social media can be a platform for cyberbullying, and this would now connect back to the mental health. So okay, that's another point that kind of connects. That's a good idea, right? Social media creates unrealistic expectations about life and appearance, leading to dissatisfaction and low self-esteem. So unrealistic expectations, dissatisfaction, low self-esteem. That's another point I could use. Overuse of social media can lead to addictive behaviors, right? And this will distract us from the important things. It can be a major distraction from school, affecting academic performance and concentration. So when you practice brainstorming ideas, you will be able to come up with points like 5 points in like 2 or 3 minutes. It just takes practice, right? Could you add anything to this list, Anslim, or anyone else in the chat? What other
Not to
ideas
the
could we come up with?
not to the list, but a tip
Hmm. A
is
tip,
to
yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah, a tip is to put yourself in like in the question. See, the question says the use of social media is negatively affecting the lives of young people. Put yourself in the life, or put yourself as a young person, because you are a young person. Put
Hmm.
yourself in that perspective, thinking how social media negatively affects you, and you have your points.
Mm. So
That's
make
how I
make
would do
make
it.
make it a personal thing. Like what if this is
Yeah.
about me, right?
How has social media affected me,
Mm.
if it has any effect at all? Or
Mm.
how has it affected persons around me, my peers, my friends?
Right.
You know?
Because it might not have affected you, yeah,
Yeah.
but you still want to ground it in reality. So okay, maybe it doesn't affect me, but it might affect persons I know. And you look at their lives, their situations, it might be able to come up with some points that you wouldn't have come up with otherwise. Yeah, so that's a nice pro tip right there. And from the chat, we have a few more points. Can lead to a change in behavior. Yeah. And of course, we would want to look at the negative changes in behavior. Yeah. And Rhonda agrees with Anslim's tip there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, brainstorming, these are some points I could use against, right? So, basically, I am advocating for social media here. Social media can be a valuable tool, right, for staying connected with friends and family, especially for those who are geographically separated. So in your brainstorm, you wouldn't need to write all this out so wonderfully. Jot down some notes because you would be expressing it well in the essay, right? You might not have time to write, for example, this long sentence, but you could write something like um, connects people, and that's a point. No problem. CSEC won't be marking your planning section, right? They're marking the essay itself. This is just for you. So if you're able to write a little bit more in the planning, and that might actually save your time in the essay, fine. Or if you want to do more bullet point stuff, fine. The point is you need to plan, you need to think about both sides before you choose a side and choose your points, right? So it might look a little bit different for different students. Another point against, it provides access to a wealth of information. So staying connected, you could just write, for example, staying connected as a point, information as a point, because you would know what you mean. You would know how to expand and expound, right? Helps young people develop digital literacy skills. Yeah, there are so many careers now being built off the existence of social media, right? Not just influencers, but social media managers, ad campaign managers, marketers. All of these careers now kind of revolve around social media, right? Self expression, right? It is an avenue for persons to express themselves. Career development and networking. So you could just write the little points in the circle here, or you could write out kind of the flesh out the idea a little bit more. And then, based on the points that you would have come up with for and against, you would choose the side that seems stronger, the side that has the better points. What if you're saying, oh man, these points are kind of trash? I don't think I can write a great essay on these points. Or maybe 2 points are good, but the rest are not so strong. But against might be, maybe have some really good points, then you choose against, right? If you're writing a more argumentative style essay, because it says giving your views, then you might choose 2 points for, one against, to balance it out a little bit. But make sure that you're not contradicting yourself. You can look at two sides without like going back on what you're saying. We'll get into it a little bit more. So make sure you're planning, make sure you're thinking about the points for and against before you actually choose a side.
So I'll go against, because against is really stronger than the four. While four has some strong points, they are like the positives outweigh the negative in this
Mm,
scenario.
mm. All right. So writing. All right, Anselm, do you wanna take us through what each of these should kind of look like, in your experience? We'll go in detail, but just looking at the screen, what do you have in mind here?
Yes, so the hook is the one of the strongest part of this essay because it captures the reader's attention. If you are strong in captivating the reader's attention, they will you'll know this is something very exciting. They'll be tempted, or they will want to stay, and they will want to read. They will want to see what you have in this essay. For the stance is basically saying, well, okay, I support this or I disagree with it. Now the points, you state the points that are coming up in the paragraphs. Starting
Mm-hmm.
in the body paragraphs, you separate each points, develop them. I would suggest start with the strongest point first, but also think about structure. Ensure that each point runs into each other, and that it sounds good in your mind before you actually start.
That's some good stuff. So you mentioned choosing the starting out at the strongest point, right? And I actually advise that as well. And one of the reasons, it's kind of an unfortunate reason, but one of the reasons is when you start with the stronger points, if time runs out, at least your best work is on the page, right? And your conclusion. What is your conclusion supposed to do? The conclusion is supposed to do three things, potentially. One, you restate your stance or your thesis. Tell us again what you really believe. Two, summarize the points that your essay went into. And optionally, you can add a call to action or an appeal. This is what you can do about the issue. Let us do this about this issue. Why don't we do that? You should think that. It's like just a final call to action, a final appeal, related to the issue.